The University of Maine got me to be curious, to be able to talk with strangers, to really appreciate what they were interested in, and to really become quite friendly with them.
I think also it taught both of us to be interested in a lot of different things. We both had a liberal arts education, which led us to be interested in history and in writing, in science, and we had excellent teachers. We just loved that.
Allen and Sally Fernald, UMaine class of 54 and 55 respectively, talking about their education and how it set them up for a rich and varied life and career, most notably as the owners and publishers of Down East Magazine. I'm Ron Lisnett, and this is the Maine Question podcast. The University of Maine has many noteworthy alums who stay involved with their alma mater and give in a variety of ways. But it's hard to think of anyone who has been more associated with UMaine than Allen and Sally Fernald, donating to various capital campaigns, sponsoring art galleries and poetry readings, attending events, leading alumni groups and fundraising drives. They've also been involved in the work of Habib Dagher and the Advanced Structures and Composites Center on developing Maine's offshore wind energy capacity. All three of their children attended UMaine as undergraduates or graduate students. As they hit their late 80s and enter their 90s, they're still active and involved. The university, of course, has changed with the times since their graduations in the mid-50s. It's now a major public research institution that educates young people and addresses the needs of our time. Since taking ownership of Down East Magazine in 1977, the Fernalds have seen those changes mirrored in Maine and in the publishing world. Down East Magazine evolved from a publication that basically promoted Maine as a tourist destination to one that reflected real life in Maine and dealt with its bright spots and its challenges, while still celebrating the state's beauty and traditions. The Fernalds have been uniquely positioned to observe how Maine has changed and how the university has grown. In today's episode of the Maine Question, we step outside some of our usual topics that document UMaine's research and creative achievement and the people who do it, and visit with Allen and Sally Fernald as they reflect on a life lived in Maine and staying connected to the University of Maine. Well, Allen and Sally, I want to thank you so much for taking a little time to share your stories with us. Maybe take us back. Let's start here. Take us back to where you grew up and when you came to the University of Maine. What was your major? How did you decide to come and attend college at the University of Maine? Allen, maybe let's start with you.
Well, I grew up in Haverhill, Massachusetts, graduated from Haverhill High School, and applied to the University of Maine, where my brother and his wife, he was a vet, were living. But University of Maine had been in my family's background because my dad was in the paper business, and a friend of his, he didn't go to college, but a friend of his was very active at Orono and was in the same business, paper business, and invited my father and as two couples got together, and he had been up to the University of Maine, and my brother was already there. I never looked anywhere else.
What was your major?
I majored in psychology, but I also had a minor in history.
Sally, how about you? Where did you come from before you came to UMaine, and what was your major?
I grew up in Southwest Harbor. I was one of the oldest of 5 girls, and I thought that I wanted to be a journalist. And I looked up to see what would be a good journalist at school, and I think it was the University of Michigan. So I said to my dad, I think I'd like to go to the University of Michigan and study to be a journalist. And he said, I can only afford to send you to a local school. And I said, oh, okay. I really wasn't, it was like a half-formed teenage idea. I knew I wanted to go to college. I wanted to spread my wings and know more about the world. Southwest Harbor is a wonderful place to grow up. But I was ready for a university. And so I applied and was accepted.
Here we are all these years later. Now, can you tell us how you both met?
Well, let me say
Whose version of the story?
My version.
Okay.
My freshman year, I never had a date because the campus was loaded with veterans who had a stipend, Buick convertibles, handsome physiognomy because of all their training. And every time I'd ask a girl for a date, she'd say, "Oh, that's awfully nice, Allen, but Captain so-and-so with his Buick convertible is taking me to Bar Harbor for lobster." So that was that. So my sophomore year, I had pledged to a fraternity. I came back a week early to help open the fraternity house, and I went to the freshman dance mixer. I shouldn't have been there. And partway through the evening, I spied this girl and I started across the floor to ask her to dance. And somebody got there first. It happened twice more. And they played Last Dance of the Evening. And I said to myself, I don't know why, but I want to dance with that girl. And I went over the floor and she was dancing with somebody she knew and was very happy. Tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Cutting in." And that was the first of it. And now here we are in our dotage. And we've been ever since.
Wow, that's great. You, over the years, have stayed involved with the university in a number of ways. Maybe you can talk a little bit about why is that and what has kept you involved with UMaine ever since that, even before that freshman dance.
Well, I had a good relationship with a number of professors and stayed in touch occasionally. And when we came to Maine, which we did every year on vacation, I would get in touch with some of them.
Well, we also were very active. We weren't as active when we lived out of state, but when we moved back to Maine in 1977, we both became very interested in the university. Our children, Melissa and Tom, both went to the university as undergraduates. Bob did his graduate work at the University of Maine. Arthur Johnson was the president when our daughter went. And this is just one kind story. And he had a daughter also named Melissa that died. He was a wonderful man. We became friends. I just think that anyone who knew him would admire him and want him for a friend. And we met so many people, the university people, to us at least, since we were potential donors, of course, but they also were kind and friendly and interesting, and it was fun to be with them. Well, that wasn't the only reason we gave to the university.
Yeah, but one of the reconnections was as an alumni, when they were doing fundraising, they would call on alumni to have teams in various states. And the first team that I got on, we were living in New Jersey.
Oh, I didn't know. I forgot.
And then fundraising. And then they nicked me again when we moved to Connecticut. And when we came back to Maine, of course, I was hooked. So that was the first of getting re-involved. But I reconnected with a number of my friends who were professors still there. One thing led to another, and I'd start being on committees and working on fundraising and just attending events up there. When they brought the opera, or when they had
concerts or
special concerts.
The plays that they put on, we had season tickets to the plays.
Certainly the University of Maine has had to grow and change and stay relevant in terms of how it goes about its business. Entrepreneurship and R&D and all those things are really sort of at the forefront now. You got involved with Down East Magazine in 1977. Can you just talk about changing, adapting to new times, new things going on since you took over the magazine? Has that been something that's been important to you to keep it relevant and current?
At that time, when we bought it, Down East was published 10 times a year. It could only have one folio in the whole magazine that was in 4-color. The first thing we did was up it to 12 times a year. First 11 and then 12. And we did that over a 2-year period. And the customers were happy. They saw it more. And of course, they paid more. And it went on and also changed its editorial. We moved from being really kind of down-homish to being a more professional magazine. It had excellent writers, and the technical production of the magazine was upgraded. We went to a different printer. We could get 4-color throughout. The shipping to individual customers was more reliable and done right at the printers. So those things all added together. And in the meantime, we started other magazines to put into the stable.
Now, one feature of Down East Magazine, of course, is the beautiful photography and the feel of the paper. You mentioned paper in terms of folks that you were involved with here at the university, and of course the Pulp and Paper Foundation and chemical engineering and the forestry industry, and papermaking is a big aspect of what goes on here. Can you sort of speak to that in terms of looking for that quality that Maine is known for, and that, you know, the paper that was important to your magazine?
The ability to have color throughout was a major move. One of the first places that we changed to was the paper mill in Bucksport, which also did the paper for National Geographic. And you know what the quality of that is.
Sure.
Of course, that mill is gone. Technology has moved away from their style.
The story of the state of Maine and the culture of Maine and everything that goes on here, is that what you try to portray in the magazine?
It's a much more sophisticated magazine. You know, we don't do shipwrecks and old sailing schooners and that. We like to have some feature of a person who's making a living here unusually. We obviously look at the vacation opportunities for here in Maine, which then says museums, it says mountains, it says sailing, it says fishing, it says hunting.
Where to stay and right,
and
where to eat.
Yeah. And we've expanded from just selling magazines to selling Maine adventures. Go out with a Down East photographer and spend 3 days with a Down East photographer in a small town you never heard of.
Right.
And or on an island, or sailboat races. I mean, there are activities for them to come here and participate in more than just being a viewer of Maine.
People say to me and to Alan, I love your magazine because it's always the same. But if you looked at the magazine, they wouldn't like it if it had stayed always the same. It gets too boring. Right.
Well, technology also enables us to do things. When we bought the company, every subscriber was on a 3x5 card with the names of their children or their grandmother or where they like to stay. Well, I brought in the first PDP-35 computer, which was on big discs. And that was so different. You know, they used to call up and a girl out there in a card file would say, "Oh, yes, Mrs. Jones, how's your husband?" We
personal
can't
service.
do that anymore.
We've talked about, being adaptable to changing times, but you have to have that base. So can you talk about how your UMaine education prepared you to go into this business and ride all the changes and stay ahead of the curve a little bit? Did that help you do the things you needed to do?
It helped me a great deal, but much of that was my career before Down East. When I went on and worked in New York in several publishing companies and got my master's degree and ended up at CBS in their book operation. And I did college textbooks across the country and internationally. And that was an exciting business. I traveled a lot. I've been on many campuses. And the University of Maine got me to be curious, to be able to talk with strangers, to really appreciate what they were interested in, and to really become quite friendly with them.
I think also it taught both of us to be interested in a lot of different things. We both had a liberal arts education, which led us to be interested in history and in writing, in science, and we had excellent teachers. We just loved that. I just loved it. I shouldn't speak for Allen, but I know he did. Also, both of us, even though Allen wasn't brought up in Maine, he became a convert. He really, we both really loved Maine. So stories about Maine were very interesting to us as well as to our readers.
You mentioned your children went here, and you've been involved over the years in many different ways with the university. Why is that? Why do you believe in what UMaine is all about and continue to stay involved and donate money and also your time?
A good part of my career was publishing college textbooks. I was on a number of campuses. Having been so close to the university as we aged, university really almost was like, checking with my great uncle about some things that I was trying to do with high-tech publishing in New York.
As students, we heard Robert Frost read his poetry to one of our classes. That's that intimacy, but the university has many strengths that they didn't have when we were there. Interest in the environment is overwhelming at the university. The Arctic studies are outstanding. Habib's lab is breathtaking. It's just so remarkable. For our purposes and for our times, it was a revelation. We really walked in and thought, wow, this is the big time. And this is where we can learn what we need to know.
It developed also because we remained attached to people we knew.
Right.
I worked with, I think, 5 different presidents over the years. There were various parts of the university that I remained particularly close to. Habib Dagher, for example.
You folks are an inspiration for everything you've done with your magazine and for the university, and we thank you so much for sharing some of those stories with us, and continued good luck on everything you do.
It's been our pleasure.
It's good to look back on it and think of the number of people who have helped us along the way,
right,
supported us, taught us, covered up our mistakes.
Right.
Thanks for joining us. As always, you can find the Maine Question podcast on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, as well as UMaine's Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube pages. We're also on Amazon and Audible. Drop us a note if you have questions or comments at mainquestion@maine.edu. This is Ron Lisnett. We'll catch you next time on the Maine Question.